So I was having a conversation with my friend the other day, and basically about why people find studying very boring, and a lot of people put in so much effort into studying, and at the end of the day, the result is not commensurate with the level of effort they've put in, and that made me to start thinking. Today I'm gonna be showing you effective study techniques that will boost your performance and will skyrocket your grades at school, uni, whatever it is you're studying for. So make sure you watch this to the end. Hello people, hello, what's good? Welcome back to my channel. My name is Dr. Pepple. I'm a medical doctor here in the UK, and I do videos for international students and international medical graduates who are transitioning to study or work in the UK. If you're a medical student, if you're any other type of student, a doctor, if you're preparing for any exam around the corner, then this might be a very useful video. Personally, I've been through 3 different universities in 2 different countries, and believe you, I have sat so many exams, and I've picked up some things that I'm going to be sharing with you today, and also most of them are actually backed by evidence. This video is going to have 3 outlines. I'm going to start by talking about what it means to study. Secondly, talk about study techniques that do not work. Then I'll give you steps for effective studying that will ultimately transform your study habits and will give you good grades that you have never ever imagined. As important as this subject of studying is, we don't ever get to be taught in uni, school, secondary school, wherever on how to study, yet you are expected to perform excellently well. That is so ridiculous. And know that studying is affected by a whole lot of factors. Your prior knowledge or your knowledge base about the topic you are studying will affect your performance. And different people will have different speed of understanding, and that definitely will affect your performance, especially when you are put into a class and given the same curriculum for everybody to study and take exam at the same date. Everyone hasn't got the same speed of understanding, so that's going to be a factor that needs to be put into consideration. Passion and interest will also affect how you study, what results you get out of your study. According to the Oxford Dictionary, studying has been defined as the process of devoting time and attention to gaining knowledge on an academic subject, especially by means of books. The second definition of studying is looking at closely in order to observe. Now, one thing you can pick out from these 2 definitions of studying is that it is more of an active process than passive. And if you don't approach it from that perspective, you might get it completely all wrong, and that will translate to you not getting good grades out of your studying. No matter how much sacrifice and time you put into studying, if you do not have the right mindset to approach it, then you will not get the right results. Time and time again, scientific evidences, psychological reports, studies and researches on studying has shown that things like rereading, highlighting, summarising, all these things do not work. They do not enhance memory, because long-term memory is exactly what will facilitate good studying habit and will give you that result that you've always wanted. And we'll talk about rereading, going over a text over and over. If you're not doing it in an active way, it will not work. Highlighting with pen and marker, different colors, people have different colors for highlighting. Those things also do not work. They actually give you the feel good factor, and you feel like you're doing something. You look at your book and it looks very colorful, and if you're not doing it in an active manner, it still doesn't work. In summarizing, you've actually engaged your brain in taking notes and condensing it into smaller bits and pieces, smaller chunks that you can try to memorize. But if you don't take it as an active process, it also doesn't work. Cramming and even memorizing, scientifically, these have been shown to only work in the short term, but ultimately they don't work in the long term at all. So why waste time on things that do not work? Now, what works then? This is going to sound like cliche, but that's the thing. For you to understand how to excel, you need to find your own rhythm. You need to find what works for you. Typically, if you've been getting excellent results from secondary school, from uni, if you've been getting high grades and all of that, then it means you have found your rhythm. That's what works for you. And you know what? You can't change a winning formula. So if that's been working for you, then you have to go for it. But if you've been getting good results, bad results, you feel like you're struggling and you still haven't found your rhythm, you still haven't found that study pattern that works effectively all the time for you, then I'm going to recommend 3 methods backed by evidence. And if you start trying to implement them from today, you're going to get a turnaround in your results. Number 1, for you to study effectively, you need to understand what is expected of you. So it's about understanding the curriculum, what I call the content guide of whatever tests, exam that you are preparing for. The curriculum is an ideal standard of knowledge set by an institution for its students to achieve. A better understanding of this curriculum with respect to the time available for you to prepare to cover its contents on time in readiness for the exam that you are preparing for is a sure way for you passing and getting good grades. I see the curriculum as something that gives you a sense of direction, and that direction is what will guide whatever decisions you are taking about your studying. Number 2 is you need to develop a study routine. Developing a study routine is what works for you, something that is realistic. Decide on what time you need to study, depending on what kind of workload you have or what curriculum you have, your other engagements, something feasible, something practicable. So you can choose to study early in the morning, 1 or 2 hours before you go to work. If you're a student, 1 or 2 hours before you start getting set to go for your normal lectures. You can decide to study later in the evening after work or after your classes. Or if you're on holidays, you've got time over the weekend, you can space out your studying in hours and try to do elaborate studying. Whatever routine you are taking has to be something that is realistic, something that works for you and fits into your own personal plan. And part of developing a routine is also getting a good space, what I call your A space. This is your productivity area, Personally, I have just developed a part of my house, converted a room into my study, and that's where exactly I am right now. This is a place that is devoid of distractions, set off comfortably with good lighting, good table, good carpet, just the way I want it. And this is my productivity space. You have to develop something like that. And if you don't have that, then you should go to the library. I personally recommend going to the library. Everybody in the library is serious. Everybody in the library is studying. So when you go to the library, you are challenged by other people who are studying. You have less distraction from people, from gadgets, from noise, from everything that will easily distract you, and you are just focused on studying. Number 3, which is where I'm going to elaborate on, is developing a study routine. This is the shortest way to get those high grades that you've always wanted. I recommend the ACR techniques for effective studying. These are methods that have been used by so many A-list students all over the world. ACR: accumulation, conceptual understanding, and recall. A is accumulation, and this basically entails all the steps or most of the steps that I've talked about before, especially when it comes to understanding your curriculum, setting out your productivity space, knowing exactly how much time you've got to prepare or to study before your exam. So you put everything, your rota, your schedule all in place. You've got all your gadgets, all the question banks, and every textbook that you need to prepare for your exam. So you've accumulated all these things together. That kind of helps to get you properly organized and focused, and a clear understanding of everything that you need for a particular exam is the first principle towards success in any exam that you're preparing for. That takes me to the second one, which is conceptual understanding. This is where the bulk of your studying comes to play. Now you have to ask yourself, this exam I want to take, this exam I'm preparing for, what level of understanding do I need? What level of difficulty is this exam? In terms of level of understanding, is it an exam that I need to do in-depth study, or is it an exam that I need to understand the concepts properly? Is it a multiple choice question kind of exams, or is it an essay kind of exam? Is it a short answer kind of exam? When you understand that, that determines how much you go deep into your study. There are certain exams, especially medical exams, that covers a whole range of subjects. If there are study materials, if there are past question papers, if there are things that people who have done the exam in the past are recommending or have used, those are the materials that you also should use for your exam. If you start trying to read everything cover to cover, page to page, then you will not really be ready for the exam in due time, and that's going to affect the outcome in terms of your results. How do you dive into getting this conceptual understanding? Some people like to study from known to unknown. People like to start studying things they know before they progress into things they don't know. There is an advantage to that. The advantage is that it boosts your confidence before you start going into things that you don't know. But if you haven't got so much time to study, and if your productivity time is usually early in the morning, and that is your best time of understanding, it doesn't make sense you starting with what you know, because by the time you go through what you know and the time left, your level of understanding would have been dwindling, and that will not be good for you. So the best thing to do is actually to start from difficult concepts at your peak time of understanding and gradually tailor it down to the things that you have previous knowledge about. When you study and you're getting bored, that's actually the time to start studying the things that you're familiar with, because at that point your brain is gradually getting fatigued and it will be difficult to learn something new. So that is the time to reinforce what you already know. R is recall. Recall or revision will enhance practice testing, and this is the most efficient, time-proven method of studying. Recall means you are retrieving information that's stored in your brain in similar fashion like you do when you're meditating. Researchers have shown that if we make deliberate effort to recall or to retrieve information that's stored in our brain, it enhances long-term memory. Before you go to a new topic, asking yourself how much you remember from the last time you read the topic is a good way of recalling. Trying to make a note of what you've read with your notes closed is also another way of recall. Researchers have shown that the forgetting curve is a concept that shows that no matter what you've read, even if you understood it at the point, after a couple of days or weeks, you tend to forget what you've studied. And for you to have effective studying, you need to interrupt that forgetting curve. And the way to interrupt the forgetting curve is by using recall. Recall, basically, like we said earlier, is retrieving information that has been stored in your brain. You're giving your brain that ability to expand and to remember what you've read in the past, what you've stored in a particular portion of your brain. So when you try to recall that information over a couple of days, then you are actually trying to interrupt the forgetting curve, and that will enhance long-term memory. Look at it from this perspective. There are some people who practice with question papers, question banks, and which is what I would really recommend. It's quite important. A lot of people have studied with question banks or past questions for an exam even without studying the main book. Some question banks have explanation for questions, so when you see a question and you fail it, you see explanation for that particular question. If you realize that you're failing that particular topic over and over, that gives you the opportunity to actually go to the textbook or wherever platform you use to study that particular topic. And when you study it effectively using all the patterns that I've mentioned earlier, then it enhances your memory. If you are able to truncate, if you're able to interrupt the forgetting curve, then you are on your way to effective learning. Another thing that can truncate the forgetting curve is by the use of spaced repetition. So spaced repetition is when you've read something, you've recalled it. After a couple of days, you come back to what you record or read and try to remember it. Some people have the habit of, if they've got 1,000 questions to practice for an exams, and this 1,000 questions, for instance, covers different topics, they have the idea of running from number 1 question to 1,000, and after that they want to come back to 1 again to do revision. If you're doing number 1 question to 1,000 and it takes you longer number of days to do all of that, by the time you come back you would have forgotten the first concept or the topics from number 1. But if you're using spaced repetition, you've done number 1 to about 200 or 300 over a couple of days. Before you go to 400 onwards, you come back to brush through number 1 to 300. That is a way of enhancing your long-term memory. In summary, using the ACR method of studying has been shown to be time-proven. Accumulation, where you gather all your materials and set out the study time, set out the study space, get all the necessary information about your curriculum. You move on to C, which is conceptual understanding, where you need to understand how much depth of information or studying do I need for this exam or this test I'm going to do. Do I need to just know enough to pass, or do I need to know in depth of what I'm studying? Then you go to recall, repetition, and practice testing. So the process of recall will try to retrieve information that is stored in your brain, so you can go through it over and over and ensure that it is stored permanently in your long-term memory. And the process of recall will also use the concept of spaced repetition, where you go over whatever topic or subject you've learned over a couple of days, go over them again before you move on to new concepts. That also will involve you using question banks, do practice testing. Practice testing can also be done by you setting questions for yourself on a particular subject or topic that you've read. And also you consider doing flashcards for yourself. You can do flashcard using some resources on the internet. You can use Quizlet, you can use Anki cards, or you can do the old traditional ones where you just write down important points, clinchers, buzzwords on anything that you're doing, and that becomes your flashcard for that particular topic. You realize that at the end of the day, you've developed flashcards for the most important or the major concepts of the subject that you are studying, and that will aid your revision. The number 4 point in effective studying is having a practice group. Study class group participation, having a study buddy will also help in understanding concepts that are not so clear to you when you do your own personal study. Sometimes this will also act as an accountability partner or accountability group, and that helps to keep you in check, to make sure that you track your progress of your study. It's been time proven to work for so many people. If it doesn't work for you, that's fine, but you have to make sure that you are using the other methods that I've already outlined earlier. The last point is having a positive mindset. For you to succeed in anything, be it study, be it life, you need to have a positive mindset towards whatever it is you're doing. If you do all the necessary work you need to do and have a positive mindset with an attitude of enthusiasm and possibilities, most likely you're going to pass and succeed in whatever exam or test that you're preparing for. I hope this has helped you. If you like the content of this video, please subscribe to my channel, hit on that subscribe button on the lower right hand corner and tap on the bell notification so you'll be the first to know when there's a new video. And yeah, follow me on Instagram at Dr. Pepple. That's for my daily activities. Yeah, and I hope to see you again next time. Bye.